Hey everyone, I just saw Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief talk about some of her favorite memoirs, and she mentioned it's non-fiction month, so I thought, why don't I tell you about some of the memoirs that I read and liked? And you know that I listen to a lot of memoirs, but I've also read a few on paper, but most of them I didn't really like. For me, the memoirs really work best on audiobook when the authors read them to me, because I feel like they're telling me personally their story much more than when I read it. But a long time ago, I read a memoir that I don't think I've mentioned before. It's been years since I read it, but I really liked it, and I didn't know it was a memoir. The Tender Bar by J.R. Muringer reads like a novel, and I honestly didn't even get what it was about. I saw this cover, I liked it, and I immediately thought of a boy in a candy shop. I didn't connect bar to a drinking bar, but a chocolate bar. And it was kind of a surprise when I found out that this whole book is about the connection this boy has to this bar and growing up, how important this bar was in his life, what role it played, and also drinking at the bar, and how that kind of dominated his life for a while and how that affected his life. And I thought it was a very, very interesting story. It was very well written. And if you are interested in a memoir by a man about him dealing with growing up in a world that favors alcohol and falling into that line of drinking a lot and getting himself out of there and finding a career, this is definitely a book I recommend. I also read a lot of DeGeneres short story collections or essay collections. I never really know if they are memoirs or not, but they're all based on his life. So they fit in there, but I don't like all of them. I like some of them more, others less. Like I said, I listen to a lot of memoirs by authors that read them to me. And I liked quite a few of the comedic ones that I listened to. Ellen DeGeneres, for example, Mindy Kaling and Tina Fey. I didn't really know a lot about their lives, and I loved how these memoirs introduced me more to their life and their career. The same goes for Issa Rae of Awkward Black Girl. I had never heard of her before when Holly talked about the book and said it's really good, and I just trusted her and got it, and it was very interesting because I learned a lot about her life and the way she grew up, which is completely different to how I grew up and how her career evolved and where she is now. And it was so interesting. That is what I like about the memoirs. You get a peek into another person's life, which is not fictional. It gives you an idea of how other people see the world. And only for that I can recommend memoirs already. Talking of Issa Rae, I got her book together with Girls Will Be Girls and The Fictional Woman, which are all also themed around the topic of feminism. And I really have different opinions about those three novels, but I thought them very interesting and enlightening, and I could take something important out of all of their life stories. And I thought it was very important and interesting to read about people who have a different life than you do and how they deal with that. And especially with Girls Will Be Girls, I could not relate to this book very much, but I really think it was very important for me to read how other people who think differently and live differently grow up and view the world. I cannot really talk about memoirs without mentioning Patti Smith's Just Kids, because it's not that I'm a huge Patti Smith fan or actually followed her work before, but the way she narrates the audiobook is somewhat transfixing. I found myself really drawn into the story, and seeing everything she talked about was very interesting. All the people she met, all her life in the 60s and the 70s in New York was really inspiring, but also the tone of her voice, which made me think about other things, and my mind tended to wander around every now and again, but it wasn't a problem. It was sort of inspiring me to do stuff, and I really like that about this memoir. Another memoir that I'm glad I listened to was I Know Where the Caged Bird Thinks by Maya Angelou, because it tells the story of her growing up until her 16th or 17th life. It's like the first in the line of memoirs she wrote, and the way they are written are also more like a novel style. You don't really feel like this is real life, partly because you can't imagine that this happens to one person. This cannot be real. It's super interesting. It's very well written, and it also gives you a glimpse of the history and the time that she grew up in. And I loved that. And listening to her narrate it was amazing. I wish she had narrated the rest of her memoirs as well. The last memoir I want to mention is by a German comedian, cackling. Der Junge muss mal an die frische Luft. He wrote this book about his family and his connection with his mother, and I did not know a lot about his life before. I know him as a comedian and I'm not a big fan, but I thought it was very interesting to first of all listen to him tell the story, and also the things that happened to him and why he tells the story and the things that he did. He wrote many other books as well, which I think are also very interesting, and his life is super interesting, so that surprised me. So if you're German and you're interested, maybe pick it up. Those were some of the memoirs that I really enjoyed. Tell me in comments if you read any of those, if you liked them, if you didn't like them, and also give me recommendations for more. What kind of memoirs do you think I should check out? Thank you for watching. Bye bye.